Jasper Jones is a book written by author Craig Silvey. It's about a bookish boy called Charlie Buckton who is startled by a knock on his bedroom door. The person at his window is Jasper Jones, an outcast in the small town of Corrigan. Mixed race and rebellious Jasper is known as a figure of danger, but that doesn't stop Charlie from vanishing off into the night with him and to Jasper's secret glade in the bush. It's there that Charlie becomes witness to Jasper's horrible discovery. Carrying the discovery like a brick in his stomach, he also deals with the ups and downs in the small mining town, such as the split of his parents, racism, prejudice, and most importantly, death.
Jasper Jones is set in the 1960s, a time in which the Vietnamese War was occurring and many Australian men were being conscripted to fight against communist North Vietnam. In 1964, it became compulsory for 20-year-old males or older to participate in the national service under the National Service Act of 1964. In 1966, the Australian government announced that conscripted men would be sent to Vietnam in units of the Australian Army and second to the American forces. To avoid national service, men could alternatively join the citizens' military forces and only serve inside of Australia, claim a student deferment, or attempt a conscientious objection application, which was a legal claim that war was against your beliefs or religion. The rate at which men could avoid conscription was generally low.
During the late 1960s, people became increasingly against the Vietnamese War and conscription in Australia. An activist group was established in Sydney called Save Our Sons. They protested against the war and conscription, managing to branch out into other states such as Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, and Adelaide. By 1969, it was majority public opinion to be against the war, and in December of 1972, conscription was abolished, and by April of 1975, the Vietnamese War had ended.
In the novel, the main character Charlie Buckton has a best friend named Jeffrey Lowe, who is Vietnamese. Due to the novel being set in the 1960s, Jeffrey and the rest of his family get a lot of grief. Many of the townspeople are racist towards the Vietnamese family or are too cowardly to stand up against the racist citizens. The racism is powered by the people in Corrigan being upset about the war, many of their loved ones being conscripted against their will.
There's multiple incidents of racism towards the Liu family that is powered by the town's emotions towards losing their loved ones to conscription. This includes Jeffrey's mother having tea thrown onto her at a meeting after Laura was reported missing. The woman who attacks her recently had her son drafted into the Vietnamese War, the same war that killed her husband moments before. The woman knows that the Liu family are Vietnamese and her emotions got the best of her in this moment.
Jeffrey's father, An Liu, also gets attacked in the front yard, so men pull up to the Liu family home and start ripping up the garden. When Jeffrey's father asks them calmly what they wanted, they start beating him to the ground. The divide in Australians during the 1960s due to the war and conscription is similar to the divide in Australians during the COVID-19 pandemic. Coronaviruses are a large family of viruses that typically cause issues with respiratory systems. COVID-19 is formed by a new form of coronavirus which was reported in December 2019 in Wuhan City, China. Since then, the disease has touched every corner of the globe, causing millions of people to become sick and hundreds of thousands of others to die.
As a bit of background, health authorities confirmed that dozens of people in Wuhan, China were being treated for an unknown case of pneumonia on the 31st of December 2019. Many of those who reported being sick had also visited a live animal market located in Wuhan. On the 11th of January 2020, Chinese media reported the first death of the unknown disease, a man in his early 60s who had visited the previously mentioned live animal market. On January 21st, the first American, Japanese, South Korean, and Thai cases were reported. Only 2 days later, on January 23rd, China imposed aggressive containment measures in Wuhan, which had since been recognized as the epicenter of the outbreak.
The Chinese government suspended flights, trains, buses, ferries, and even shut down the subway in an attempt to stop the spread. On the 25th of January, Victorian health authorities confirmed the first Australian COVID case. A man from Wuhan had flown from Guangdong to Melbourne on the 19th of January. By the 30th of January, the World Health Organization declared a public health emergency of international concern, claiming that these extraordinary events are a worldwide threat as it could spread internationally. By the time late March rolled around, the entire globe was affected by the virus. Countries such as China, Italy, UK, US, and France all majorly affected.
The ongoing divide between Australians during the pandemic is similar to the divide during times when conscription was occurring. In the 1960s, there was the part of society that had a negative opinion towards conscription, and there was the part that was neutral about the situation and knew it was what had to be done to keep the nation afloat during those times. This can be compared to the split in opinions during the pandemic. Some people are obeying guidelines set by their governments, such as lockdowns, flight bans, mandatory masks, and curfews, as they know it is what has to be done for our own benefit, whereas others are outraged by the new changes that have been implemented.
In addition to this, the verbal racism and physical abuse written about throughout the novel is powered by the emotion society felt during those times, having potentially lost loved ones to the Vietnamese War. The Liu family, being the main receivers of the abuse in the novel, have to experience the physical and verbal abuse from the citizens that are upset about their loved ones being conscripted and taken away from them. This is parallel to the racism that occurs in the present-day society during the pandemic. People all over the globe react differently to certain situations, some having negative reactions towards the people that they think caused these situations.
Nearly 400 people with Asian backgrounds responded to a survey between April and June of 2020. 65% of the respondents said that they experienced abuse on the topic of coronavirus. 49% of those were ethnically Chinese. Most of the abuse was racial slur/name calling, followed by jokes, verbal threats, and being spat, sneezed, or coughed on. 6% of cases involved physical intimidation. A 19-year-old Vietnamese woman from Sydney told the survey she was being accused of bringing the virus into Australia. She claimed the perpetrator attempted to kick me, told me to go eat a bat, and even threatened me with a knife. On top of the racism in the street, it was also seen actively in the media. Donald Trump, the President of the United States at the time, even called the virus Chinese flu or Kung flu.